Paris Hilton kept going to Epstein's Island and was also involved with Diddy to a large extent. What happens at Diddy's and Epstein's parties cannot be described. So I have decided to give Paris a divorce. I cannot live with such a vile person.
Paris Hilton is finally acknowledging the reports that Ghislaine Maxwell attempted to recruit her to date Jeffrey Epstein.
I really started doing this just whole path of self-discovery.
The best party I've ever been to was at Blank's house.
Puffy's 50th birthday. It was so sick.
Yeah.
Epic.
This is Paris Hilton with P. Diddy. An agent.
Paris Hilton's glittering fairy tale just shattered, and what's spilling out behind the scenes is dark. The man she framed as her calm, safe forever, Carter Riem, has reportedly filed for divorce. And he's not just walking away quietly, he's pushing for custody of their children. According to insiders, the reason why has everything to do with a resurfaced video that Paris has spent years trying to keep buried. That flawless TikTok marriage, everyone swooned over the lavish wedding, the soft-focus baby announcements. The picture-perfect new Paris-era people are now side-eyeing all of it like one carefully staged illusion. Because Carter isn't just leaving, he's allegedly claiming the kids need protection from what this footage reveals. And that's when the story takes a seriously unsettling turn. It all explodes when a clip from an old documentary suddenly starts making the rounds online. The video pulls viewers straight back to Surviving Jeffrey Epstein, the 2020 series that exposed names most people hoped would never resurface. In it, composer Christopher Mason drops a chilling claim that he overheard Ghislaine Maxwell talking about Paris Hilton when Paris was just 19 years old.
A lot of people don't give credit to, but in actuality is really beautiful, is Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton. And I've known Paris Hilton from the time she's 12.
She's hot.
Her parents are friends of mine, and, you know, the first time I saw her, she walked into the room and said, who the hell is that?
Did you want to bang her? Even at 12, you were kind of like, wow, she's hot.
I saw her at 12, she was beautiful. But honestly, you know, Paris gets knocked and this and that, but she's very beautiful.
Is she dumb?
Flawless. She's dumb like a fox.
Ghislaine said, oh my God, who's that? And my friend said, yeah, she's called Paris Hilton. And Ghislaine said, oh, God, she'd be perfect for Jeffrey. Could you introduce her?
According to Mason, Maxwell was allegedly looking for someone to introduce Paris to Epstein because she thought Paris would be perfect for him. Let that sink in. Now that clip is circulating again, louder than ever, and suddenly Paris's past is colliding head-on with the life she's built. Carter's move isn't being framed as heartbreak. It's being framed as alarm. And whether these claims are true or not, the damage is already done. Because once Epstein's shadow enters the chat, nothing stays clean for long. No amount of pink filters or fairy tale branding can stop the internet from digging deeper. And that's where the unease really sets in. Once the internet smells blood, the digging never stops. Old screenshots suddenly resurface. Paparazzi photos crawl back out of the archives. And then the image starts circulating. September 2000, New York Fashion Week. Paris Hilton standing there with Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump like it's just another carefree night in Manhattan. Now, sure, a photo isn't a crime. Everyone knows that. But context is everything. The timing, the company, the fact that this image resurfaces right as Epstein's name is being dragged back into the spotlight. Social media doesn't do nuance, and it definitely doesn't stay calm about things like this. Paris has always maintained that she doesn't remember meeting Maxwell. And honestly, back then, she was everywhere, every red carpet, every club, every party with a camera flash attached to it. Faces blurred together, names lost in the noise. It's completely possible she truly forgot. But here's the problem. Silence doesn't survive in Epstein-related drama. Not anymore. Once that documentary clip and that photo started circulating side by side, the questions turned vicious. What if Paris knew more than she ever admitted? What if this wasn't just some random brush with the wrong people in the early 2000s? The internet isn't whispering anymore. It's demanding answers loudly.
Have you seen the video, this video?
I have seen it.
You did? What'd you do? You went on the internet?
It was just.
How did you see that? What did you do?
Melania showed it to me.
She did?
She showed it to me.
What did you think of that?
I think it's probably unfortunate. And what is that noise?
That's the tape. Okay, all right.
I think it's probably unfortunate, and it made Paris hotter in terms of the world, because the world is so screwed up.
Kids who have already experienced trauma. This $23 billion a year industry sees this population as dollar signs and operates without meaningful oversight.
And this is where Carter reportedly snaps. His entire role in Paris's life was being the stable one, the clean-cut businessman, the calm, grounded contrast to her chaotic past, the man who gave her the quiet life she always said she wanted. He accepted her history because it was supposed to stay history, locked away, resolved, done. But now that past is being dragged straight into the Epstein scandal, and suddenly Carter is thinking about their kids. He doesn't want them growing up Googling their mother's name and seeing Epstein's shadow attached to it forever. So he doesn't hesitate. He goes legal immediately. Custody filings move fast because he knows exactly how brutal court gets when a mother's reputation becomes the battlefield. And once the internet starts digging, it never sticks to just one scandal. Everything Paris has ever lived through gets pulled back into the light. The very first thing they weaponized, the early 2000s tape. She was only 19, pressured by an older boyfriend, and the entire world consumed that footage without caring or even acknowledging that she was the victim. Paris has spoken openly about how deeply it damaged her, how it haunted her for years. But the internet doesn't do compassion when old drama becomes fresh ammunition. To them, it's all just content. And once the narrative flips, mercy is the first thing to disappear.
I still have nightmares about it. I'm in bed, and these two people come into my room and say, do you want this to happen the easy way or the hard way? It's terrifying, and I relive that every night.
Why is she having these nightmares? On the outside, it looked like Paris was living a perfect life, but that was far from the truth.
And just when it seems like it can't get any worse, another chapter from Paris's past comes roaring back. The language controversy. Reddit threads explode overnight, tracking up old clips and grainy paparazzi videos where Paris is allegedly heard using racist and homophobic slurs, including the N-word. And this isn't being framed as a what-I'm slip or a badly edited moment. According to longtime critics, there are multiple incidents in different settings, different years, different cameras. Clips people swore were forgotten suddenly feel very easy to find again. And the timing couldn't be worse. Once Epstein-related scrutiny opens the door, everything else rushes in behind it. Social media doesn't care about growth arcs or apologies in moments like this. They're lining up the footage, replaying it, slowing it down, and asking why these moments were brushed aside for so long. Was it privilege, fame, the era protecting her? Now, the narrative online isn't just about who Paris stood next to. It's about who she was when she thought no one was watching. And as these clips circulate next to the divorce rumors, the custody battle, and the Epstein shadows, the story keeps getting uglier by the hour. Once the internet decides you're being re-examined, it doesn't stop at one accusation. It rewinds your entire life and hits play.
You might be on like the 6th floor. You live on
Gay guys are the horniest people in the world.
Gay guys are too much.
They're disgusting.
It's like, listen, my for you.
Dude, most of them probably have AIDS. I would be so scared if I was a gay guy.
And then there's this story, the one that makes people physically recall when it resurfaces. A British journalist once claimed he witnessed Paris being filmed for hours. Perfectly polite, charming, all smiles, with two black designers, cameras rolling, image intact, no cracks. But according to that account, the moment those designers walked out of the room, the switch flipped. The journalist alleges Paris immediately turned to a friend and used a deeply offensive racial slur to describe them, said casually, like it was nothing, no hesitation, no awareness that anyone would ever hear it. What makes the story even uglier is what supposedly happened next. That same friend later claimed he cut Paris off completely because the language never stopped. According to him, she kept using slurs so freely it made him uncomfortable. He also alleged she made derogatory remarks about Jewish minorities as well. Whether people believe the story or not, The pattern is what's haunting her now. This isn't one clip. It's not one rumor. It's multiple accounts from different people in different years, all describing the same thing, a private version of Paris that didn't match the polished persona the public saw in the middle of a divorce, a custody fight, Epstein connections resurfacing, and the internet already sharpening its knives. This kind of allegation doesn't just sting, it detonates. Because now the conversation isn't about mistakes or growth. It's about character, about what happens when the cameras turn off, about who someone really is when they think no one's listening. At this point, Paris isn't just fighting rumors, she's fighting a full-blown character trial in the court of public opinion, and the verdict feels like it's being written in real time. And this is the moment where everything stops being gossip and starts looking serious. When custody enters the picture, courts don't care about vibes or branding. They look for patterns. They look at behavior. They look at character over time. So online, the narrative flips hard. If she acted like that back then, how does she act now? And what does that mean for the kids? Almost overnight, Carter stops looking dramatic. He stops looking reactionary. Instead, he's being framed as a father trying to build a wall between his children and a storm that keeps getting bigger. In that version of the story, he's not attacking Paris. He's trying to keep the mess from landing on their kids' laps years down the road. And just when you think the pylon can't get heavier, the internet digs even deeper. Those old clips with Lindsay Lohan get dragged back into the spotlight. Grainy, chaotic footage from the mid-2000s where Lindsay, barely 18, already cracking under non-stop media pressure, is visibly uncomfortable, while Paris, 26 at the time, laughs and mocks her on camera. Back then, people brushed it off as messy party girl drama. Today, it's being rewatched through a completely different lens. Each power, public humiliation. Nothing exists in isolation anymore. Every clip, every comment, every old headline gets reinterpreted and stacked on top of the next dot. In the middle of it all sits the custody question, the one thing that changes everything. Because now it's not about who Paris was. It's about whether her past behavior creates doubt about the environment her kids grow up in. And once that doubt enters the conversation, it doesn't quietly leave. It lingers. It multiplies. It turns a celebrity divorce into something far darker. A battle over who gets to control the narrative and who gets to protect the children from it.
Who's movie bombed?
Lindsay's movie bomb?
What's her name? Who's movie bombed?
Firecrotch's movie bomb. Get in the car now.
Claimed rise that she goes after people who are easier to dominate, easier to embarrass, easier to control. And in a custody fight, the most vulnerable ones in the room are always the kids. That argument practically writes itself, and that's what makes it terrifying. Just when you think the archive has been fully emptied, another controversy claws its way back into the spotlight. The animal drama. In 2008, animal welfare groups reportedly started raising concerns about Paris's treatment of her pets. She was famous for carrying tiny dogs like accessories, designer outfits, matching bags, the whole image. But critics claim some of those dogs mysteriously disappeared. Headlines at the time alleged she had bought more than a dozen over the years, and not all of them were ever accounted for. Back then, it was brushed off as tabloid noise, rich girl excess, bad pet ownership jokes. Now, the internet weaponizes it instantly. If she can't keep track of animals, people start asking, how is she handling babies? Fair or not, that comparison spreads fast. Screenshots, old headlines, think pieces disguised as tweets. Suddenly, what once felt petty turns into something prosecutors and family court judges might side-eye. In custody battles, perception matters almost as much as proof. At this point, every loose thread from Paris's past is being pulled at the same time. The picture critics are trying to paint isn't glamorous, misunderstood, or chaotic. It's careless. Once that word enters the conversation, the stakes shift completely. Now, this isn't about fame or scandal anymore. It's about whether her past can be reframed as a risk and whether Carter's move stops looking cruel and starts looking strategic.
I have 17 dogs.
No, you don't.
Yes.
17 dogs?
A lot.
Well,
They all sleep in my bed.
They do not all sleep in your bed.
Not all of
Where
them,
do they,
but I let
some
of
sleep
them.
in your bed?
Sometimes, yeah.
And then people dig up her 2017 comments, the ones that caused a firestorm the first time round, when harassment allegations against Donald Trump were dominating headlines. Paris publicly defended him, suggesting that some women were exaggerating or doing it for attention. The backlash was immediate and brutal. She later apologized, walked it back, tried to soften the damage, but the post never disappeared. It's still there, and now it's being screenshot, reposted, and dropped right back into the middle of this mess. Because once the Epstein web gets mentioned, anything tying Paris to powerful men from that same orbit suddenly looks like another warning sign. Context gets flattened, timelines blur, and online, it all gets lumped together into one uncomfortable question mark. What makes this turn even uglier is that even her trauma, the thing that once earned her widespread sympathy, is now being twisted against her. Paris has spoken openly about the abuse she endured at Provo Canyon School. She testified before Congress. She pushed for reform. She became one of the most visible voices calling out that system. For a long time, people respected her deeply for that. But critics are now reframing it in the harshest way possible. They claim that instead of fully reckoning with the harm she endured earlier in life, she leaned on her trauma as an explanation and then moved on. Is that fair? No, not even close. But here's the brutal reality. In a custody fight, fairness isn't the deciding factor. Narrative is. And right now, the narrative being built online is ruthless. Every old quote, every controversial take, every painful chapter of her life is being stitched together into a single story, one that paints her as protected, unchecked, and never fully accountable. Whether that story is true almost becomes secondary once it gains momentum, because in court and in public opinion, perception can harden faster than facts. Paris Hilton crashes out. Carter Reum has officially called it quits. Divorce isn't just on the table anymore, it's happening. The couple may have whispered about splitting before, but now Carter has made it clear he's done with Paris. On the surface, their marriage looked like a fairy tale, glamorous events, red carpet moments, envy-inducing vacations. But behind the flashes and champagne toasts, it was anything but perfect. Sources close to the pair described the relationship as messy, a tangled web of unspoken tensions, clashing priorities, and emotional strain. The battle wasn't just private. It was a collision of public image versus reality. Differing visions for family, career ambitions, and lifestyle choices created constant friction. Right in the middle of it all, Nikki Hilton, Paris's sister, fiercely protective, often played the roles of advisor, confidant, and unintentionally the spark for yet another argument. Flashback to November 11, 2021. Paris and Carter exchanged vows in the sprawling gardens of her grandfather's bare estate. Glittering chandeliers, flowing silk gowns, cameras snapping at every turn. The world watched a picture-perfect moment unfold. But behind those dazzling smiles, a storm was quietly brewing, a storm of unmet expectations, simmering emotions, and the pressure cooker of a life lived in the spotlight. What looked flawless to the public was a ticking time bomb behind closed doors. And now, it seems it finally exploded. Paris Hilton, the iconic socialite whose every move has been under the public microscope since her teenage years, seemed to have finally found her prince in Carter Reum, the poised entrepreneur, whose calm, steady demeanor appeared to balance her effervescent, larger-than-life persona. But behind the glassy Instagram posts and headline-making appearances, the merging of their worlds brought not just excitement, but a storm of unforeseen pressures and subtle tensions. Enter Nikki Hilton, the quieter, measured sister who had built a life in fashion and philanthropy while watching Paris navigate fame, fortune, and heartbreaks that seemed bigger than life itself. Her protective instincts ran deep, and though her intentions were always rooted in care, her involvement would soon place her at the center of subtle but significant marital turbulence. Even before the wedding, Carter sought Nikki's blessing, cementing her role as confidant and, unknowingly, mediator in what would become a complex triangle of sister, bride, and husband. On November 11, 2021, Paris beamed at the altar, exchanging vows amid flowing silk and glittering chandeliers, promising forever. The world saw romance. The cameras captured perfection. Yet behind those sparkling smiles, the collision of expectations, identity, and the relentless glare of fame quietly brewed chaos, blurring the line between love and performance. The early days of their marriage were a whirlwind of public appearances, media scrutiny, and the enormous pressure of sustaining a decade-spanning brand. Paris balanced her socialite legacy with fashion lines, fragrance ventures, and the relentless mission of keeping their marriage picture perfect. Meanwhile, Carter, accustomed to the calm of business life, was suddenly thrust into the glaring spotlight of celebrity culture. Nikki's role, meant as a supportive anchor, became increasingly complicated. Her advice, gentle cautions, and occasional public remarks about Paris's unusually relaxed wedding planning sometimes introduced subtle tension. Carter occasionally interpreted her protective instincts as interference, even when her loyalty was pure. Paris and Carter's history stretches back over a decade, crossing paths at Los Angeles parties, charity events, and elite social circles. For years, they were acquaintances, exchanging pleasantries, but never exploring romance. Around 2019, their paths began to align more intentionally. Private encounters revealed shared interests, mutual values, and an undeniable chemistry, evolving friendship into love. By February 2021, Carter's proposal on a private island marked the official beginning of their engagement, setting the stage for a high-profile wedding that captivated the world. Their story, part lifelong familiarity, part newly blossomed romance, was later documented in Paris's Peacock docuseries Paris in Love. The cameras captured laughter, tenderness, and the chaos of planning lavish events under relentless scrutiny. But behind the spectacle were arguments over guest lists, dress choices, and balancing career with marriage. Even fleeting disagreements filmed for posterity risked magnification into drama. Parenthood added another layer of complexity. The couple's surrogacy journey brought joy alongside logistical headaches, emotional highs and lows, and anxiety. The births of Phoenix in January 2023 and London in November 2023 were milestones celebrated publicly. Yet, the delicate negotiations over privacy versus visibility often reignited tension or private reality hidden behind public smiles. Even as Paris and Carter celebrated milestones publicly, the push and pull between privacy and spectacle quietly strained their marriage. Every decision, public appearances, social media posts, brand promotions required delicate negotiation, and the tiniest misstep could ignite tension. Nikki Hilton, ever vigilant for her sister, often stepped in to offer advice or coordination, but her protective instincts sometimes fueled the perception of divided loyalties, adding yet another layer to the fragile balance. One particularly tense episode reportedly erupted when Carter confronted Paris over a social media post he believed revealed too much of their privately. Paris, feeling accused and misunderstood, fired back, accusing him of trying to control her voice and dim her individuality. A wound that cut deep given her lifelong struggle to define herself outside of others' expectations. What began as a simple disagreement over boundaries quickly spiraled into a full-blown emotional standoff, laced with passive-aggressive remarks, frosty silences, and lingering resentment. Friends close to the couple described the argument as toxic yet telling, exposing the delicate fault lines between love and self-expression, privacy and publicity, the very contradictions that have always defined Paris Hilton's world. As time passed, these arguments grew more frequent, evolving into a relentless cycle of affection, tension, and silent distance. Even the smallest disputes over travel plans, photo choices, or children's outfits could escalate into emotionally draining standoffs. Paris maintained her polished, composed exterior, while Carter withdrew, creating a silence colder than any words could capture. What made these moments truly toxic wasn't just the anger, it was the exhaustion that followed. To people deeply in love, yet trapped in a vicious cycle of unmet expectations, power struggles, and the relentless pressure to appear perfect in a world that was always watching. Every disagreement became a reflection of the impossible standards surrounding them.